Welcome on in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan. Streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on the 1069 The Fan mobile app and live on YouTube. You can find us at The Fan KLGN is where you'll see us streaming, watch video. If you're tired of just listening to us, you can watch us as well. But however you're listening, be it live or on the podcast feed after the fact, we're glad to have you guys in to talk Utah State Aggie sports and a little NFL, NBA, and NHL. We're going to just about run the pro gambit in the second hour.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah, just a little bit of everything. And leading off talking about Utah State men's basketball, as I don't always love getting into trying to nail down like specific players that, teams might go after in the transfer portal. It can be really tricky because I start falling in love with players that I think Utah State should go after because this guy would be so perfect. And then they go, who knows where. And then Utah State brings in a player that I've never heard of, but then that player ends up being solid. It's kind of like the head coaching search, where it's like you think of, this guy would be perfect and you want this guy. And then it's like, well, turns out all that speculation was for naught. But what else are we going to do on the radio?
Yeah, that's right.
This is our job. So I may not necessarily like doing it, but I also do like doing some, quick scouting of players just to see a little bit of a kind of guy and of the type of guy a player can be. And then be like, all right, let's start imagining him in a Utah State uniform. Or I do this with the Jazz as well. When I'm looking at players coming out of the draft, imagining them in a Jazz uniform. And sometimes I get a little too hyped for second round picks with the Utah Jazz because half of those guys don't end up turning out well, but you fall in love with the guy and you think he has potential in the second round.
Yeah.
But there is news today. It was actually Brian Phillips reporting that apparently Will Hornseth, the former Northern Iowa forward, a transfer, who entered the portal with the do not contact tag, saying that he's already verbally committed. There's nothing official, and it's not been widely reported, but there are reports out there now, at least one report out there.
Yeah, at least one. That
Will Hornseth, and I have no reason to doubt it. I've already been working on kind of an in-depth scout of Will Hornseth. Heck, even before those reports were coming out, because I was pretty certain that Will Hornseth was going to end up playing in an Aggie uniform. And so that's likely one player that the Aggies have added in the portal. 10 to go. They've got 10 more spots.
Still a lot of positions.
And just to talk about Will Hornseth for a minute. Actually, real quick, I want to get to this because this is something that we've talked about over a couple of shows, and I did get something of an update here. 5872 sending this in though, saying, not sure if y'all got an update on this yet, but Jax Allen has returned from his mission, has been working out with the Snow College basketball team. Drake talked a little about him during an interview with Scotty in late January, early February. Would love to see him come redshirt with the team this season. Yeah, and I texted some of the people at Utah State just asking, is there anything official? And there's not anything official out there. Yes, he is back from his mission. There is ample evidence that is something that is obviously happened. But there's nothing official as to whether or not he's going to be with the team. He's committed to the Aggies, like as in, he was part of last year's signing class. So there is that commit. So unless there's something that goes awry with the national letter of intent and all that kind of stuff, I would assume he will be with the team this upcoming season, unless something goes wrong. Of course, now there's a change of coach, and with that, there's things that can change like that.
Yeah,
you could have a decommit. We'll see. But my assumption right now, I think it is a safe assumption that Jax Allen will be with the team. Will he play? I don't know. I think Utah State's going to be looking for veteran players at point guard. I think probably one of their biggest splashes in the transfer portal market will be whoever they sign at point guard. That will be the transfer player that has the most hype, is whoever they bring in at point guard. At least that's that's also an assumption and a guess. I'm not going to report anything specific.
Yeah, I mean, they could have they need a wing player, they need a point guard, they need a center. So
they need 10 guys.
They could be any number of positions.
But they need to add multiple point guards. Jax Allen probably isn't going to cut at least. I mean, with him on the roster, you probably want to add 2 point guards. And just because you want to have some veteran presence for a position like point guard. Utah State the last couple of years has had veteran point guards. That's been really helpful. And so, would he come in redshirt? That would probably be the more likely option, but we'll see. He was a talented player at Orem. So, and actually 1818. Glad you sent this in because this is pretty much what I kind of wanted to talk about with Will Hornseth, his verbally committing to Utah State. So 1818 asking, realistically, do you think Jacobson runs Templin and Hornseth at the 4 and 5 with the starting lineup?
Yeah, so Will Hornseth is 6'8".
He's basically the same physical frame profile as Karson Templin.
Yeah, 6'8", 235 pounds. He was a sophomore, so he'll be coming in as a junior. But there's a lot that's very similar. I mean, he averaged 11 points. 4.5 rebounds, just a little over 2 assists, half a steal, half a block per game. He's a big, important contributor to what Northern Iowa did last year. But there are a lot of similarities with how he plays and how Karson Templin plays. Could we see them on the court together? Possibly. This is, and it's, I can't. My instinct is to look back at what happened last year for Utah State, but I can't do that because it's going to be a different coach and a different style. So, Jason, we have to rely on you and your film study to let us know, have you seen instances with Ben Jacobson? Does he run sets like that with 2 guys in there running similar things? Because I would want to look at, we saw Karson Templin and Gary Clark on the court together, and they're similar heights, similar styles. But it's a different coach and a different mentality now.
Yeah, and that was one of the first things I went to is, okay, well, what did Karson... There were 2 prongs I wanted to search here. Is one, how does Karson Templin play? And I didn't get as much into the film study. I saw some of the numbers. But you bring up Karson Templin and Gary Clark. They did play on the court together. In fact, that was one of the better 2-man lineups or pairings as far as on-off numbers and things like that. They were really good together. But as you said, different coach. This is a whole different ballgame. So going back to Northern Iowa, now I looked at about the last 2 or 3 seasons, skimming over to see how many possessions, how many minutes was Ben Jacobson playing 2 guys that are more like centers as opposed to power forwards. It's hard to define this because like Karson Templin and Will Hornseth, they are power forwards in a lot of the, like, if you think 6'8", 235 pounds, you think power forward. But a lot of guys with that physique, a lot of them are playing small ball center, especially at the mid-major level. And kind of their skill set and their quickness and athleticism, all of the traits in that area lend them to playing more center or, maybe power forward depending on the lineup.
So did you see Ben Schweiger and Will Hornseth in lineups together? Because those are 2 guys at similar body type, similar size. Schweiger is 6'8", 220 pounds, and he was, pretty.
I see him listed
regularly a contributor with the team, averaging about 10 points, a little under 5 rebounds.
Well, I've seen him listed at 6'6".
Schweiger?
Yeah.
Oh, ESPN lists him at 6'8".
Oh, does he? Because he's not like they have on the team 2 players that were playing power forward. Schweiger's one of them, and the other is Tristan Smith. And so those guys would play a lot with Will Hornseth because he would basically be playing center. He was essentially their center. And so he'd play with Schweiger and Smith. And those pairings were pretty solid. In fact, Hornseth and Tristan Smith, who is essentially the starting power forward, I think he missed some games, but when he was healthy, because he only played 28 of their 36 games, but he started 21 of 28 games, averaged 21 minutes a game. So when he was healthy, he was usually starting next to Will Hornseth. And so they did that pairing all over the place. But Schweiger and Smith are a lot more, in terms of their archetype, they're a lot more comparable to guards in that they move a little quicker. They do have good length. But, and again, I look at Tristan Smith and he's listed at about 235. He didn't move like it. He looked and he moved a lot more like a guard. In the roster I'm looking at, Basketball Reference, sometimes they can have inaccuracies on their roster pages. But when I look at Tristan Smith, on paper, he seems like the kind of player that you can maybe compare to Karson Templin in some sense. Tristan Smith actually wasn't much of a shooter. So if you're talking about spacing, Hornseth has played with guys next to him in the front court that weren't able to space the floor a lot, and he did fine. Offensively, defensively, it worked out just fine. But my impression of watching that Tristan Smith and Will Hornseth pairing is it felt a lot more like again, kind of a tall guard in a sense, playing that power forward position. Now, it was a very brief, Scott. I did not spend more than 15, 20 minutes on this, so I can't say that I have thoroughly analyzed this specific pairing on film. But my impression was that, and then as I went back in previous years, I wanted to see, did Will Hornseth, when he was a freshman, did he play at the same time as, 2 years ago they had a guy named Jacob Hudson who was a 6'10" center. Did Will Hornseth play next to him? Did they pair two centers essentially, or two kind of power forward center types? And he basically didn't play with them at all. They didn't end up on the court at the same time. So there are parts of me that think I don't know if Ben Jacobson has played lineups that are akin to what a Will Hornseth, Karson Templin pairing would be, because they are two essentially small ball centers playing on the court at the same time. And from what I've seen in the last few years, Jacobson hasn't really done that. Now, maybe if I go back 5, 10, 15 years, he's been coaching a while, and I haven't analyzed every roster and all of that. Maybe there's something out there. But over the last few years, I've not really seen a volume of lineups or volume of pairings that match what a Karson Templin and Will Hornseth pairing would be. But having said that and done that research, just as I look at it, there's no way that Jacobson could or couldn't pair them together for a lot of minutes. They are sinking way too many resources into these two players. I'm sure they've invested a lot of NIL to keep Karson Templin here. I don't know if they've sunk a ton of NIL into Will Hornseth, but he's bringing him over from Northern Iowa, and he's not going to bring him in to play him 15 minutes a game.
Yeah.
I just don't see that happening. You have an improving player who, as a sophomore, has already been producing at a decent level and is only going to get better. So you can't just bring him in to play 10, 15 minutes a game. You've got to play these guys a lot of minutes. Are they going to split 40 minutes of playing center? I mean, maybe. But that feels like a bit of a waste to have two guys like that just splitting minutes at that one position. And also you end up wondering are they going to go out there and get a big, 7-foot center? Because if they get one of those, then that's even less minutes for these guys to be splitting between center. And somebody's going to have to play power forward at some point.
Right.
So just as I walk through all the different aspects of this, I feel like they're going to have to figure out how to play together. And I think there's ways that they can. I think that they'll be able to play. It's not like they're going to play 25 minutes on the court together every single night. They'll probably overlap for 10 to 15 minutes every night.
Yeah, if they need to go with a jumbo lineup,
then
they can do that. If they need to go small ball center, then you're probably not going to play them together.
Yeah, you can start them at the beginning. They play 5 or so minutes. Then you move one of them to the bench. You bring in a guard or a taller wing to play that, to play that power forward position, and then start the second half. And then you close the game with those two on the court. If they were to start and kind of be your top front court matchup, that's kind of how it would be. And you'd have, potentially 25 minutes where you're playing with with a the non-jumbo line, if you want to call it that, or the non is a pair of 6'8" guys out there.
0694 actually on the text line, who is our resident Aggie listener from Iowa, looking at past texts here. But so he says, Schweiger is an athletic 6'8" wing or stretch 4 type player, more like an Elamine or Tucker sophomore version. Would be like Elamine and Templin playing together. Yeah,
and that's where that's why I got that impression. And the biggest problem is I was watching more Tristan Smith and Will Hornseth pairings than I was Schweiger. I was usually turning it off I was usually switching to I should have watched more of him with Schweiger, but yeah, that was my impressions that he was more of a wing. Apparently my roster listing just has him 2 inches too short, I guess. But yeah, Schweiger was very much a stretch. I think he was one of their, if not their best 3-point shooter. 37%. I guess he wasn't the best. Weisbrod was their best 3-point shooter. But yeah, and interesting. Yeah, just the pairing of Karson Templin and Will Hornseth. I feel like if they're going to have those two on the roster, they've got to be able to make it work. And, and it's got to be their best or one of their best front court lineups, because you're going to invest a lot into those two, and they need to be able to play together. You cannot have them splitting all of the center minutes but never being on the court at the same time, because then that eliminates the possibility, or really limits the possibility, of having a true kind of jumbo center, 7-footer plus, if the Aggies are going to go out there and get one. And I think they do need to go out there and get somebody. They can't limit their front court to just having another 2 6'8" guys, because while you can kind of make it work, we've seen over and over the Aggies can have winning teams, great teams, elite teams, at least within the Mountain West sphere. Mm-hmm. If you want to take that next step, you've got to have the size, you got to have the horses to run, you got to be able to at least kind of stand up to the teams that have a lot of size. Yeah,
and how those minutes get divvied up. Will Karson be a starter, or will Hornseth be a starter?
Yeah, I don't think it particularly matters. Like, say one of them just comes off the bench. Like, Karson could come off the bench again, and then where maybe you start with that more athletic 6'8" power forward wing, someone like Schweiger or Elamine or Tucker, like someone in that archetype. Obviously, none of those players individually are going to be on the Aggies roster next season, but someone in that mold. But then you bring Karson in and you play the 2 6'8" bigs, Karson and Will. You could do that, or you could start out with them, where teams tend to go a little bit bigger sometimes. They'll play bigger lineups. That's where you have teams that start their 7-footer, play him for 3 minutes, and then take him out of the game.
Yeah, then they change.
Yeah, so you could see Karson and Will start together, and then they move to their more, the more versatile lineup with the guards and the wings. That's something they could do. So I don't really think it matters who starts. It's not really a big deal. It's just more about what kind of lineups can you build, and how are you able to divide up minutes, get everybody the minutes that they need to be able to contribute the most that they can, and how many versatile lineups can you build? We talked about that last year with the Aggies being able to put together a lot of versatile lineups, with really the only limit being they couldn't really get a real jumbo lineup, big lineup, because the best they could do was put a couple of 6'8" guys on the floor.
You also have Kingston Tosi, and you have to figure out with that position too. So.
Yeah, because Kingston Tosi could play that power forward position if he's ready, and we'll see. I think his ideal would be to play small forward and then have some of his minutes at power forward. So that would be an interesting way to use him. But yeah, like, you need to be able to maximize Karson and Will Hornseth, and basically having them both hard capped at like 20 or 25 minutes a game, because they could only split minutes at like one position with each other. That feels like you're not getting the most out of those players. So they have to figure out a way to be able to play minutes together.
By the way, 0694 says Schweiger is petitioning for a medical red shirt and may get a 6th season. Maybe he is in play for the Aggies if Elamine doesn't return.
Yeah, we'll see. I'd heard that, but
it's a game, 5 boards, 2 assists, a steal a game.
Yeah.
Not bad from the 3-point line.
Yeah, I've not watched much in the way of film from him, but if he did get that medical waiver, I think we're going to talk about transfer portal targets. Put him on the list.
Yeah,
I've got a bunch of other names, but we do need to take a break. We'll get back to this. We'll just jump right back into this conversation, but we got to make sure we stay ahead of this here. So don't go away. We'll keep talking Utah State basketball and the transfer portal and all that. Coming up next here on The Fan. Welcome back into the Full Court Press. I turned down the music and I didn't turn on the microphone.
You'll get there.
I'll get there eventually. I won't be doing this for like 2 or 3 years now, so you'd think I'd have that down, but you didn't. For those of you who were worried that you were going deaf, I just forgot to turn on the microphone. So we're talking Utah State basketball transfer portal. Obviously, reports that Will Hornseth has committed to the Aggies. How will that work with Karson Templin? I'd say it kind of has to. I don't see a world in which you bring in Will Hornseth and don't plan to play him next to Karson Templin, because otherwise you're wasting one of those two players.
Yeah.
By not being able to play them. Like, those are both guys that should be able to get 25 minutes a game, and they can't both play 25 minutes a game if they can't be on the court at the same time.
Maybe. Yeah, but
maybe. There's not enough minutes, unless you go to overtime.
Well, if they're on the court at the same time.
Yeah, if they're on the court at the same time, then they can play that. They can overlap by about 10 or so minutes. You don't have to play them on the court always together. But if according to your lineup rules, like, there were certain players with Utah State who, well, I don't know if there were no complete restrictions, because I think just about everyone played with everyone else on the roster, but like, you tended not to see Karson and Zach play together. You tended not to see Zach Keller. Usually it was with Adlin Elamine or one of the other wings or guards playing power forward. It did happen sometimes with Gary Clark and Karson Templin.
Yeah.
But we've had other years where it's like there are certain bigs that would just never really be on the court at the same time. They just had to, play minutes separate from each other. And if you have a lineup like that dictates, okay, we don't want to play Karson and Will at the same time, it's like you can't be having that. And I get if it's not your best front court pairing, that's fine. It doesn't have to be. They don't have to be the two stars of your front court to play every minute together, but it has to be a compatible pairing. For at least it has to be a viable pairing. Otherwise, You're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, does it elevate your team one way, offensively, defensively?
Yeah, it needs to do both.
Yeah, do they provide interesting matchups and advantages while they're on the court?
Yeah, and to me, I think really the only question as to whether or not it'll work. So I'll give my opinion on whether or not I think it can work. It's just a matter of defense because offensively, I think they can pair just fine. As far as if you talk about spacing, like. Will Hornseth was playing with power forwards who weren't particularly great shooters. I mentioned Tristan Smith. The guy didn't shoot a whole lot, if I remember his stats correctly, and wasn't a great shooter when he did shoot it. 27% from three, and he shot like 10 3-pointers all year. So essentially a non-shooter. It worked. They made it work. And in a 5-out offense, no less, they would run a 5-out offense with two guys on the court that couldn't shoot. They made it work. Karson Templin would pair with Gary Clark. Gary Clark was essentially a non-shooter, and Karson Templin was kind of a limited shooter where he would usually only shoot it if you left him wide open. The Aggies made that work. So I think that offensively, Will Hornseth and Karson Templin pair well together. It's just a matter of, okay, when one of them has to guard, like the other team puts out a 6'6" player at power forward or even a guard, like can you guard a 4-guard lineup or the faster wings? Can Karson or Will defend those kind of players and not get beat off the dribble, not get beat in isolation situations? I don't know if I really have the answer to that, but if the answer is yes, if they are viable enough in that situation, then I think that the Aggies will be fine pairing them together.
A couple texts coming in, one message coming in on the YouTube channel chat. The Aggies, or this is from Braden Clark, by the way, it surely seems like the Aggies are going retention of former players over potential transfer players. Would love to see some State or connected to Coach Jacobson. This is still very early stages of the portal. We're getting into the weekend where it's going to be easier for guys to do visits. There's a high school recruit who's going to be making his visit to Utah State tomorrow. It'll be interesting to note if there are other recruits who are or transfer portal guys or anyone else who's also going to be on campus at the same time. So it's early stages, but and I get it. As a coach, you want to try to protect the known before you go to search for the unknown. It's often better if you understand what you have and understand how it works before venturing into the unknown to try to find somebody that you hope works. So it's natural that a coach would try to go with those, to retain those he's familiar with. Either they are familiar with the institution or he's personally familiar with that he can coach and be in his system.
Yeah, it is better bringing guys you know than guys you don't know. And so I'd much rather, as much as we're going to go over some of these names, I'd much rather have Adlan Elamine, largely for the sake of the fact that he's familiar with the program, familiar with some of these guys, than, even though I like some of these guys that I've written up some notes on, the guys that are familiar with Utah State and want to be here and want to stay here, you want those guys over, again, venturing into the unknown. And going into the unknown and getting transfers, that has worked.
It's worked
for the Aggies.
Yes.
It has largely worked. They have hit, at least on enough players. They're not batting 1,000 on players that come in and work out perfectly, but they're usually getting somebody and they have a good enough hit rate. But you never want to have to keep rolling the dice. You want to be able to get guys that work with your team.
2444 on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. I would be a little more excited for the Hornseth signing if he were a stretch big. I don't know if any of our returning players are known for outside shooting. Mason is solid, but doesn't take many. Braden is somewhat of an unknown. Tosi and Karson should probably be shooting them sparingly. Yeah, Karson is definitely more of a stretch big than I think Hornseth is.
Yeah, Hornseth has taken, he took
9 3-point attempts last year?
And it's deceptive because if you just look at his shooting percentage, it says 44.4%. He was 4 of 9, as you said.
Yeah.
He took 9 3-pointers.
So Karson is that stretch big.
Yeah.
And Karson, he improved as the season went on. I think that he will continue to work on his outside shot, needs to. He'll be more versatile and more valuable if he works and develops a consistent outside shot, kind of like Justin Bean. Bean, early on in his career, did not have an outside shot. It was really scary, bad mechanics.
His problem
but
was
it got better and better.
His problem was that he developed the worst shooting hitch I've ever seen in my life, and it took him multiple years to overcome it. And then once he did,
but eventually,
because he's a decent shooter in high school, it's just something weird happened, and he had to overcome that.
So Karson has also some different mechanics when he's trying to shoot a three.
I don't like his release very much.
But he can shoot the three and occasionally shoot it fairly effectively. So if that's something that he continues to develop, then that creates this spacing for the two of them where they can coexist. They're not in each other's soup, because Hornseth can be more of a prowler in the paint, and Templin can be somebody who can be more on the perimeter or versatile and put him wherever you need him. And so then they can coexist at the same time, offensively and defensively.
Well, the thing that would work well, as you said, Karson more of a stretch big, and what he did this last year, 1.8 three-pointer attempts per game, and he shot 33%. That's about what I think Carson's going to be able to be like. I think that's roughly the extent. He's not going to be able to shoot 4 or 5 3-pointers a game and make them at a 35% clip. But he doesn't have to be that. He doesn't have to be that. What he was last year.
If he's somebody who can shoot 2 3-pointers a game, and at least defensive realize if he's on the court, there's always that threat. 33%
is roughly NCAA average for a player. It may have gone up in the last few years, but a few years ago when I was checking, it was about 33%. So that's enough spacing. And it gives some versatility with those two, when they're on the court at the same time. This is why, again, offensively, I think they'd pair just fine. Hornseth is a lot more of a back to the basket big. He has a solid and productive post game. So you'd put him in the post, he'd be going to work, and Karson can either be on the opposite side on the dunker spot or in the corner posted up for 3. So he could do both of those things, where he can just dump it off and he dunks it, or we'll see him be able to shoot a few more threes this season, or he'd shoot threes from that corner or from the wing. They can have good 5-out spacing and allow Hornseth, the chance to go to work in the post when the play calls for that. So yeah, I think they can work together in that sense. But yeah, Hornseth would be nice if he could shoot the 3, but yeah, he's not really going to be doing it much this season.
And I don't think that's something that they need to try to shoehorn him into that, because you have other guys who can fill that role, especially how Karson Templin is evolving as a player. I don't think you need to try to expect that of Will Hornseth.
Yeah, I think they'll likely end up with enough shooting. To just go over some of the other parts of 2444's text. Yeah, Mason is a solid 3-point shooter, but as you said, he's not like a volume 3-point shooter. He takes 3 or 4 a game, and he makes them at a really solid clip. But he's not able to take the high level 3-point shots. He's able to take decent 3-point shots and make them. But you're off the dribble. Guy goes under the screen, so you pull up. Pull up and off the dribble 3-pointers are not Mason's game.
No,
but he can make catch and shoot threes, and that's good enough for him. Braden Bowe, I expect him to be a good 3-point shooter, though he is an unknown. That's mostly me passing on secondhand information to people that say he is a good 3-point shooter, and I kind of have to trust them because I don't have the sample size on paper or on film.
We saw a few open practices last summer, and even then, he wasn't really somebody that I was watching.
Yeah, well, even I go back and watch some of his film and whatnot. There's just not enough film out there. I can see highlight reels of him, but highlight reels don't tell me how good of a 3-point shooter you are. You can make a highlight reel of me hitting 3-pointers, and I can make you think I'm a 40% 3-point shooter.
Because you made one doesn't mean you always make them.
I can show several 3-point shots that I made. There was a day where I went 3 of 3 in pickups. There we go. I feel like I'm Steph Curry out here. But that does not. I shoot normally in the teens from 3. So there's a difference.
And the same story goes for Kingston Tosi.
Yeah,
again, these are unknowns with some things from high school stuff, but how does it translate at this level, and how much were they used in practice? Yeah, it's just we don't know. It's just
Yeah.
evidence is nearly not there at this level to really have an opinion about how much they will be used in that kind of role.
Yeah, and of the sample size I've seen from Tosis, he very much prefers driving inside the paint. There are some 3-pointers that I've when I had film and stats that showed he would take maybe 1 or 2 per game, but he's not really. Again, he'll take them sparingly. I think 2-4-4-4 was kind of on point there, saying that Karson and Tosi should probably be shooting them sparingly, but they can shoot them, but sparingly.
Right.
And that's kind of where we're at with them. 0694, saying similar to how Keller stepped out and hit a few threes to keep the defense honest in the latter part of the season, Hornseth is probably capable of that.
Okay, and that's probably a fair comp, right? Where
Keller had a lot more history of being able to shoot 3-pointers, though, than I know it didn't show up as much because he didn't play a whole lot, but like his high school and college career, like when he was opponent of Nemish Keta taking more 3-pointers, because I thought he had a decent shooting stroke, he just never ended up taking them. And I knew Zach Keller could shoot 3-pointers, before he started taking them. Maybe Hornseth is capable of that. Yeah, can he take 1 3-pointer every other game? Again, just keep the defense honest. Is he capable of that? I don't think so, but again, I'm not God out here. I don't know all this stuff.
1818 texting in. Randomly, John Rothstein tweeted about MJ Collins yesterday. Slight correction. It was actually Jeff Goodman who tweeted it out about having their own portal. And I'll read the tweet here in just a second. Is MJ thinking about coming back for another year? Seemed like he was all in on going pro. So it was actually Jeff Goodman.
Oh, was it Jeff Goodman?
Who had the post. He says, I like MJ Collins as a player and person, but here's the issue with the portal. The Utah State guard went into it, has played 134 games over 4 full seasons. He's played at least 32 games every year. These guys need a separate portal or something. So the post kind of came out of nowhere.
What? Separate portal for what?
But yeah, separate portal for what? I mean, this guy's eligibility is done.
Is that what, like a separate portal for people that don't know if they're going to be able to play? And mind you, he can't. He's just not.
And if that's the case, because there are a number of times where players will put their name in the portal, even though their eligibility is expired, because there might be some court case out there that's deciding eligibility rules. And if somehow a decision is made that affects them, they're instantly available.
Yeah. And here's the thing with MJ. He's kind of been eyeing getting a 5th year because, like, in the middle of the year, there was some case that came out and, like Jared Calhoun mentioned that I don't know if he explicitly said it was MJ that brought it to him, or maybe one way or another we found out that we knew it was MJ Collins that brought it up to Coach Calhoun. Maybe because I think we might have talked to MJ that same day, but, like, he saw something that was like, hey, maybe I'll be able to get a 5th year. And I forget what story or report the details of why that came up, but MJ was like, hey, maybe I'll get a 5th year. And now we have this executive order, which, mind you, doesn't take effect until the one signed by the president, whether or not it'll even work. It's not supposed to take effect until like late summer.
Yeah.
So
August.
Yeah. MJ's not getting a 5th year. He might toy with the idea, but Ian Martinez went into the portal too, with this kind of same thought of, hey, maybe I'll get another year. But MJ Collins has nothing. MJ Collins didn't play JUCO. He didn't redshirt. He didn't miss a single season or probably hardly missed any games due to injury in his entire career. He played 4 seasons in 4 years. There is nothing that MJ Collins has to pull out of his back pocket and say, I can play another year.
Graduate transfer?
No, he's played 4 years. Can't do that.
Yeah, he's used up all of his eligibility.
He's used up his eligibility. There's just nothing there. So I just don't like. I know some of these reports, and again, the fact that I guess he's technically in the portal, but yeah, he's not playing another year. He's got to do what Ian Martinez did. He'll put his name in and hope against hope, but he's got to go pro. That's his next step.
Yeah, nothing else out there.
Let's take a quick break. And then we'll get into some names. There's some names I've come up with. Of course, I haven't actually come up. Honestly, most of the names on the list are just names I've seen around. I haven't necessarily come up with any on my own. So we'll get there. There are a couple, 1 or 2 that I've kind of come up with, but they're not terribly unique, I'll say, because there are some other people who came up with those names independently. So, and then 2444 also putting up a name on the text line. So we'll get to some ideas of transfers Utah State could go after. And so we'll dive into that next here on the Full Court Press. Young Power Sports of Logan has the ultimate service center that can handle any make, any model, 100% of the time. They got free pickup and drop off anywhere in Cache Valley. So Young Power Sports makes it possible for an easy fix. Google Young Power Sports Logan for Cache Valley's premier power sports service department. So Eric, I'm going to kind of tease this as technically the title of our stream and all that about possible transfer portal targets for the Aggies. And so I've come up with some names that I kind of sloppily was teasing at the end of last segment. I'm not going to take credit for finding these people and saying, oh, I know this person and I think they're going to be great for the Aggies. A lot of these names are ones I've seen bouncing around, talking to people. So, and I don't want anyone to think I'm really smart when I bring up all these names.
Okay.
But these first couple are just either reported or speculated interest, kind of explicit. This first one, Isaiah Manning, played for Sam Houston State, actually TCU a couple years ago. But there was at least one post from, I think, the Portal Report, who their whole thing is reporting on the transfer portal and reporting that guys are in the portal. Or one of the things they do is they say, here's this player, and here's all the teams that he's heard from.
Right.
Which is usually just agents telling them, here's who my guy I've heard from, and the veracity of those reports can sometimes
if they try
be in
to
question.
hype the interest, the price is going to go up, the interest is there, you got to act.
And so there, you got to take some of that with a grain of salt. But apparently Isaiah Manning is 6'8", junior forward, going to be a junior. He's just finished his sophomore year. Averaged just
Sam Houston State.
Sam Houston State. Just under 11 points, just under 4 rebounds, just over 1 assist, and then good shooting percentages, 46% from the field, 35% from 3, 87% at the free throw line. He did only play 16 games due to an injury he suffered midseason. I didn't see what the injury was. When I tried to look for it, it just said an undisclosed injury. But he's an interesting player because he plays with both power, like I'd see him like bully his way to the rim. He's also pretty decently athletic, so he'd be a really good power forward, I think, for the Aggies if that interest is actually there, and if the Aggies were actually able to get him to come to Logan.
According to the Portal Report, Oregon State and Fresno State are from the Pac-12 are also interested in him among a variety of other schools, and one Tarleton State.
There you go.
Eric Hout.
Trying to get him in there. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of reasons you want to get him there. Another name, Leon Bond. That's a player that I've brought up a lot. Northern Iowa, played under Ben Jacobson. I've seen some rumblings that Utah State may or may not be interested in Leon Bond. I don't know why they wouldn't be. I don't know why Ben Jacobson wouldn't want to bring Leon Bond with him to Logan. I think he's rated 150th among transfer portal entrants, according to Evan Mia. Like, he's a good two-way guard, efficient, good shooter, good slasher, who's got a good outside shot. So I think he'd be a great fit for the Aggies, but we'll see if he ends up coming to Utah State. We had a
2444.
And I was looking at 2444
had a recommendation. I don't know if this guy is on your list or not. I'd love to see Brumbaugh from Tulane at USU. Was impressed seeing him in person in Charleston and had a great season. Aggies need a playmaking point guard.
I'm going to have to look him up because I did not have him on my list. Well, first impression on the stat line is nice. 19 points, 19 points, 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists. 6'4" guard. So I haven't done a ton of digging. I guess I saw him at the time, but memories of that have faded a little bit. But yeah, the Aggies do need a point guard. And if you can find a scorer at that point guard position, I think that would really benefit them. Like, I think because there's talk about trying to find an MJ Collins. He's more of a small forward. Well, if you can find someone that's a scorer like MJ Collins at a small forward position, then more power to you. I'm more inclined to think that with Ben Jacobson in his system, he might lean a lot more toward having a playmaking and scoring, like especially scoring point guard. And there are a lot of guys out there. It's weirdly easier to find 6'1", 6'2", or some cases like this Brumbaugh kid, 6'4", scoring point guard. And so I think Ben Jacobson might lean a little bit more to that. Again, that's just a hunch. That's just looking at his past teams and also seeing where there tend to be more scoring point guards available. I would think that he would lean toward doing that. But again, maybe he's going to change up his recruiting game because maybe he's got a little bit more of an expanded pool that he gets to work with, where he's at a higher mid-major school than he was at. He's got a higher NIL budget that he's able to work with. So I don't know if he's going to continue his exact same recruiting strategy that he did at Northern Iowa.
Right. He's got a lot more advantages now.
But yeah, that's kind of my impression of that. We need to step away and take another break. When we come back, we'll just keep on this conversation. I'll bring up a few more names. Potential transfer portal targets for the Aggies.
Napa Auto Parts has air fresheners, shop towels, sea foam, and more. You can also get Chemical Guys car wash and detailing kits for only $49.99 on sale at your locally owned Napa store from Preston to Providence.
So I don't know if we have enough time for me to really go into any. Well, I'm gonna bring up a few names. We'll probably have to lead off into the second hour with some of these, especially we've got 5662 with the text. A couple of names that are interesting because of Aggie connections. So we'll get to that. We've only got about a minute and a half here, and I'm already burning more of that by rambling here. But just a few of the names. I think it was J.D. Walker who brought up this one, Leaf Moeller. I took particular interest when I saw names of people bringing up people from the Missouri Valley. And this is when he played at Evansville. They finished last in the Missouri Valley, but he's an interesting player. He's one of those European jumbo point guards. Like imagine diet Luka Doncic.
Okay.
And calling it that is probably throwing out too many lofty expectations for this gentleman. But he's a jumbo point guard, but kind of in that same, like when you think of Luka Doncic, he's not athletic. Like Moeller, if I'm saying his name right, is 6'7", and he recorded one dunk last season. So that tells you about some of his athleticism and his pop.
Okay.
But crafty, ran a ton of pick and roll. Like that was like the one thing he did more than basically anything else. I think he ran more when he scored more out of the pick and roll than like any other way. He was weirdly not very good at finishing at the rim. I don't know if he's also a freshman or was a freshman. I should point that out. But as a freshman, shot 40% from the field. That's where there was some of the worry. 40% from the field as a 6'7" player, but 37% from three and 78% at the free throw line. So there's a baseline for his shooting, and he was a sophomore. And he averaged 11 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. So that was one player I liked. Quelron House. He played for, I think, Southern Illinois. I forgot to write down where he's from, but he's a guy that averaged 15 points, 3 rebounds, 3.5 assists. Played with a lot of swagger. I loved watching some of his highlight reel. But we've got to take another pause here. We'll be back. We'll continue talking about Utah State transfer portal and potential targets for the Aggies and Ben Jacobson. Welcome on back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan, streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on the 1069 The Fan mobile app, and streaming live on YouTube. The Fan KLGN is the YouTube account that you can search for and find us. However you're listening live, on any number of ways you can live, listen about 10 ways it feels like you can listen to us live, or just on our podcast feed. However you listen, we're glad to have you on. If you are listening live, or even if you're listening on the podcast, feel free to send in your thoughts or comments to the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321. Or if you're listening live on YouTube, we're usually checking the YouTube chat as well. We may not be as quick to that. 5662 on the text line saying, just talk Aggies for the full 2 hours. Your Aggie coverage is great. At the other stations that should be talking the Aggies, that don't, let them cover the pro sports talk. I'll be honest, the transfer portal talk that we spent the entire first hour on, that was only supposed to go for 2 segments.
Yeah. Oh, but you guys make it happen.
So
send the texts in and keep it rolling.
So we
will adjust.
And that's delayed some of our other stuff. So we're probably going to talk the Aggies for about 80% of the show, because we've got some Eric, you did some interviews with Utah State
football stuff.
So we're gonna overflow from last hour. Still more transfer portal stuff to get to, but then we will get into Utah State football. So we're not going to be departing from Aggie talk very soon on today's show.
There's another text from 5662.
Yeah, and this was the interesting one, because we were talking about names. I was bringing up a bunch of names, guys, connected to the Missouri Valley. That Ben Jacobson would have seen, like we've seen with Jared Calhoun. He's targeting 2 former Mountain West players, Dre Gibbs Lawhorn and Miles Bird. Got to see them, I think, a combined 6 times, those 2 players, 3 times each player. And so and he saw what both of those players can do. But 2 players they're interesting that 5662 brought up, and so I'll just read the text here. Saying 2 Aggie bloodline players, both guards, Jordan Ross, Roddy Anderson.
Aggies saw Roddy Anderson when he played for Boise State
a couple years ago.
He has bounced around a little bit. He also played for UC San Diego, most recently at Xavier. But he is in the portal. And according to Sam Kaser Hoops, says that he's receiving interest from Missouri, USC, Rutgers, Nebraska, Rhode Island, Loyola Chicago, and Boston College.
This was Roddy Anderson?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and
Roddy Anderson III.
Yeah, Roddy Anderson III. Same name as his old man who played for the Aggies. And yeah, I know a couple of times when he's been in the portal, when he left UC San Diego, there were people wanting to bring him in to Utah State. And I think when he left Boise, I don't know if there was quite the same. I think partly because I think maybe by that point the Aggies had picked up some point guards. They weren't as in need of a point guard as they are now. But yeah, that would, I'll be honest. My memory of Roddy Anderson watching him play, I was not particularly impressed. And statistically, I have not been particularly impressed with Roddy Anderson III.
At Xavier, he averaged 11 points a game, a little over 3 rebounds, a little under 2.5 assists, and 1.3 steals per game.
Shooting under 40% from the field. Like, his shooting percentages are scary. Like, he is a career 39% shooter. He's never had a season over 40% shooting. He's had one season where he's shot over 30% from 3. And it was this last year, he shot 31.4%. So the production has largely been there. And when he was a freshman, it was a lot easier to potentially excuse. I mean, there was the guy who played for Evansville where I talked about his, shooting 40% from the field. And I mentioned him being a freshman, where that's potentially a workaround. Like, sometimes you're just inefficient when you're, early on, especially when you take a really big role and you're a freshman. You can struggle to be efficient at times. That does happen, where you then build up some of that efficiency later on as you get more experience. Roddy Anderson has just never gotten over that hump, where he's never become an efficient player. I get some of the counting stats look nice, but if we're talking about impacting winning, you want to see a guy be able to shoot effectively from the field.
Yeah.
And so while the Aggie connection is there, and while I don't think he'd be a horrible player, but if you want to get, Utah State has brought in guys who came in and shot efficiently. And the guys that they brought in that usually didn't have great, MJ Collins didn't have the greatest shooting percentages, but a lot of that was, I don't know. Well, MJ Collins was weird because there wasn't really a great explanation for his lower shooting percentages. He just came to Utah State and shot it way better.
So the other one is Jordan Ross, who was in the portal. He's from Pleasant Grove, Utah.
Yep.
He's a guard, 6'3" guard, currently at Georgia, but also spent some time at St. Mary's before going to Georgia. So would he make his way back west? Would he make his way back home?
Maybe. I'll be honest. He suffers from similar problems to Roddy Anderson. Career 39% shooter, 29% from three. I mean,
struggled to really break through at Georgia. A role player,
but he shot better at Georgia. He's improved though. He shot 42% this last year, 31% from three. So maybe there's an improvement there. But I don't know. Maybe if for Utah State, the portal is a hard place for the Aggies to pick up players. So I don't know if you can be super picky, and maybe you can think hey, with MJ Collins, they were able to get a guy who actually didn't shoot particularly well from the field, and put him in the right offensive system, put him in the right role, have him, the fit. I think that was honestly the biggest change. That's not something you can parse out on a stat sheet. Is their shooting percentage lower because the fit isn't good and they're not in the right type of offense? MJ Collins fit Jared Calhoun's offense like a glove.
Yeah.
And that really helped him. Would the same thing potentially happen for Jordan Ross or for Roddy Anderson? Maybe not. I'm inclined to think the Roddy Anderson actually would do pretty well because he's a guy that, again, from what I was able to see of him, better going downhill, better in ball screen situations, and there are a lot of ball screen actions in Ben Jacobson's offense, especially with the point guards. So maybe that would just be a bit of a better fit for him, potentially. I don't want to completely write off these two players as saying they'd be bad additions. I have some concerns. But we also do need to present the other side that there is a possibility that if Ben Jacobson goes after these guys, there doesn't seem to be any reported interest. There's connections with the Aggies, but who knows? If they were to fit Ben Jacobson's offense, these guys are both talented basketball players.
Yeah.
If the fit was right, a lot of these concerns I have with their offensive inefficiencies would likely go away, much as they did with MJ Collins, because that was one of my chief concerns with MJ Collins was his efficiency. He didn't have it. And suddenly he did. And he was a fantastic player for the Aggies.
Yeah, just as we've seen in football, a player who can't really break through in the rotations or get a lot of snaps at a power program transfers to a place like Utah State. Suddenly they're unshackled. They have opportunities. They want to prove that they are a quality player, and they blossom at a place like Utah State. So we've seen it in football. We've seen it in basketball. Could one of these guys be kind of that mold that could still be in place for Coach Ben Jacobson to find somebody who struggled to really break through at a power program, looking for minutes, looking for an opportunity to be an impact player, and he'll have that at Utah State.
Yeah. So just I think that's most of the text we got through, I believe. I know one other name that's interesting that's come up, though he's more connected to there are more people connecting him to school down south. That's Colin Chandler.
Yeah, BYU seems to be a front runner there.
Yeah.
This is a return mission kid. He's from the state. I think he went to Farmington, played at Kentucky. Kentucky had all kinds of issues, just underperforming, and BYU is looking to fill some holes and bring him home. He still gets to play at a very good basketball conference.
Yeah, so that's where you can. He's kind of on the Aggie wish list, but I don't think that I think the Aggies were a finalist, one of his final teams, but he ended up committing to BYU, and then he followed Mark Pope as he was leaving high school, followed him to Kentucky. That's how that ended up going.
2603, Florida had one big and one really big into the portal. Micah Handlogton, who is 7 foot, and Oliver Ryu, who is 7'9". Can USU get one of them?
Honestly, just pick a 7 foot big who has some level of production. And I think that'd be great for the Aggies. The problem is those guys are just so expensive. Like a player who averaged like 10 points and 8 rebounds might cost $1.5 million.
Yeah.
Like the Aggies were going after, what was his name? The former UVU big. He went to Clemson. I forget his name suddenly. The Aggies were going to get him, and then he goes to Clemson, gets $1 million. And he averaged like 10 points at UVU and like 6 rebounds. And he gets $1 million from Clemson.
Yeah.
And it's like, you think
to provide
you think
backup.
you think the Aggies have a chance at, a center from, the Missouri Valley or the CAA or wherever. And, they averaged like 12 points and 7 rebounds, but it was for like a low major. Like those guys, and they're 7 foot or 7'1", those guys end up getting lots of money to go be the 15-minute per game starter at a high major school. Like Shimon Zapala, who actually couldn't really seem to hack at Utah State, ends up going and starting for Michigan State.
Yeah, that's right.
But he only plays like 15 minutes a game, but he started for him. Like, so I have players that I've highlighted. Like one of the centers was Anton Bonk. At least I think that's how you say his name. The Aggies faced him this year because he played for Charlotte last year, formerly played for Providence, even spent some time in JUCO. But he averaged 10.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, and a block and a half. He's 7'2". Could the Aggies get him? Maybe, if they can afford $2 million for him, because that's what
that's the going rate for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, that's like Providence might pay him that just to come back because he went and proved himself. So there's a lot of centers. I know.
Speaking of Providence, looks like Miles Bird is headed there.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, good for him. Cincinnati is striking out on a lot of players.
Yeah. By the way, 9315. We see your texts. They don't make sense. Yeah, so we're moving on.
We didn't quite get out of them. I think what you were trying. If you can refine the text, we'll be happy to read it.
Meanwhile, 0694 texting in, UVU has a couple nice players in the portal, in Lenhart and Holcomb.
Yeah, UVU has a habit of always producing like 2 or 3 like really solid players. Most of the time they end up going to one of the high major schools. Most of the time they end up flaming out. I think there's a couple former UVU stars. Like I think they had a WAC player of the year a couple years ago who, I forget where he went, but he's in the portal again because he played like 5 minutes per game in his new school and now wants to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I think they'd be nice players. Like Leonard, I remember looking at him a little bit, and Holcomb, again, good players, wings. Guys would be good for Utah State, but UVU, like most of those guys end up being offered big money to go to high major schools. But if the Aggies can land them, I think Jacobson is certainly interested in trying to find guys with Utah ties.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that would be great. Having those guys in the mix, they were part of a good basketball program, a growing basketball culture, a team that knows how to win. So those are wins. They don't have to travel far, much different from where they were. Yeah, those could be nice additions for Utah State.
Yeah, Holcomb especially, because you can bring him in at that, again, either small forward or maybe even power forward. He's 6'7", 200+ pounds, average 7 rebounds per game. And of course, Leonard, I think this is why I remember him a little bit more. He is, like me, an alma mater of Davis, or a graduate of Davis, and native of Kaysville, Utah.
Oh, wow. Well, sign him up.
Yeah. Hey, that's where, what was his name? One of the point guards during the Craig Smith years. Why can't I remember anybody's name at this point? He ended up going to Ohio State for like his final year.
Oh, yeah.
Abel Porter.
Abel Porter,
that was his name.
Yeah, yep.
He was also, technically, me and him like overlapped slightly. He was a sophomore when I was a senior in high school. So, yeah.
That's your claim to fame.
Yeah, that's my claim to fame. Overlap, attending the same school. He's not even the best athlete to come out of Davis High School. As good as he was, there were some more impressive athletes to come out of Davis. That's just about what we got for transfer portal targets. If you have any other thoughts, like keep sending thoughts in, we can get back to those as well. But we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to get some interviews that Eric had with defensive coordinator for Utah State football, Nick Howell, and then Anthony Garcia, the wide receiver / gadget player.
Yeah, he had some really interesting things to say about Robert and I, so you want to make sure you stay tuned for that. And Nick Howell, this year compared to last, and how he feels about the defense coming along, and how different things are now that there isn't a spring portal. So we'll uncover that after this on the Full Court Press.
Feel the love with Mountain Valley Heating and Air. Nominations are now open. Last year, they had 5 complete heating and air systems that were given away to deserving families. And in 2026, Mountain Valley Heating and Air hopes to give away 10 complete systems. So nominate them now at Mountain Valley HVAC, or excuse me, it's mtnvalleyhvac.com. mtnvalleyhvac.com. So yeah, go nominate someone in need today. So yeah, 10 complete heating and air systems.
That's awesome.
That's pretty good. Excuse me. So Eric, you had a chance to go speak with Nick Howell and Anthony Garcia after Utah State practice today. And here, which one was more interesting?
Well, I think they were both interesting.
All right, then.
But I think that if we lead with Nick Howell, defensive coordinator Nick Howell, a little bit more meat in there.
I actually don't have these labeled, so I'm only pretty sure that I have Nick Howell's.
Oh.
It's just labeled as video asset number 1. So
let's roll the dice. Because if it's Anthony Garcia, we talked offense and his role as one of the lone returning guys with production in an Aggie uniform, but also how things are progressing offensively too. So we'll see who we hit from.
Let's see. I'm pretty sure this is Nick Howell. If it isn't, it's Anthony Garcia.
Utah State defensive coordinator Nick Howell, and you guys are several weeks into this spring practices so far, with about a week more to go. So how would you assess things so far as they've progressed? How do you feel like you guys are at where you'd like to be at this point?
Yeah, I think that we're where we should be. I'm pleased with our guys. I think that I mentioned this before, but being in year 2 is, we're much more advanced than we were in year 1, and that just comes down to repetition and speed of and having guys know the way that we do things. I think the thing that we're working on is just trying to get the new guys up to speed and our culture and the assignments and things like that. So, but yeah, I think we're right where we want to be. With the last couple of practices left, we just got to push hard to finish through.
Spring showcase a week from Saturday. So you got just a few practices left. What are some of those key areas for you that you want to install with the defense?
Yeah, I would say, culturally here, we want to play really hard. And so we just want to continue to focus on effort and physicality. Guys being physical at the point of attack, guys hustling to the ball, being, physical. So there's guys all over at the ball, and then really just focusing on our assignments, teaching the defense, getting guys to know exactly what to do and play it fast. So it's a lot, just repetition, these next couple of days, how many repetitions can we get at the things that we want to get good at?
Have you been able to approach spring practices differently, knowing that there's not a pending spring portal anymore? Does that change anything in how you've done things this season compared to the last couple?
Well, I think it does, because a year ago you can evaluate and guys can leave and guys can come. And so you're not thinking about that as much, more as this is the team that we have and this is what we gotta develop and work with, and that way. So it's a little different, but not drastically.
Last couple weeks of the season, last fall, defensively, you guys were building some really serious momentum. How much of a challenge is that to carry into the off season, into the new year, especially with so many new guys joining a roster?
Yeah, I think the biggest key is the guys that were here leading. I think in this day of transfer portal, it's like if you have a guy here, he's got to show the guys that are coming in how we do things. And so our guys that have been here, I think, have done a good job of that. Something that I think's been really cool here this off season has been our former players have been here training and stuff. And so, like, if you look out at practice, there's guys that were good players for us a year ago, standing around at practice helping coach and helping encourage and stuff like that. And so there's a good culture here, man. We got really good guys, but that is the challenge, is to get the culture passed on and the standard passed on of how we want to do things.
When folks come next Saturday to see the showcase, will they see much different by way of defense, or just, the players are going to look different, but functionally the defense is pretty much the same?
Yeah, I think so. If you're a fan, there's 11 dudes out there lined up running the ball, trying to hit and make plays. So yeah, I think that's what it'll be. Yeah.
Looking at your defense so far, it seemed like in this offseason, there was a real emphasis on getting like edge rushers, shore up that defensive front, and getting some guys in the linebacker position as well. How do you feel like, has that really been addressed, or is there still a lot of work to be done?
I think time will tell. We did address those issues in terms of getting guys here. Now it's how fast can we get those guys up to speed. I've mentioned before, a year ago, we had some really good players. When you look at Ike and Miller and, Noah Vinger and just different guys up front, Gabe and those guys, and, Anoka, like we had some good players, but the depth was lacking. Right now, my assessment is that our depth is better. So, our 2 deep will be stronger. Guys will be able to sub and rotate, hopefully allowing other guys to be fresh and fast. Now it comes down to a year ago, did we know John Miller was going to have that kind of season that he had? Like, who's going to do that, and who's going to make the plays, and who's going to be, great players for us, and just time will really tell. So.
And then I guess just the last question, I think you've already kind of addressed this, but just the difference this year to last, where there are guys who understand what is going to be asked of them. They know the approach that you guys want. There are a good number of new guys, but there's a lot more guys who understand what you're asking of them, what Coach Mendenhall is asking of them. How much does that put you ahead at this point compared to where you were last year?
I think a lot. I mean, every day last year was new in terms. So you talk about culture. It's like how we do things, how hard, how physical, how precise. That's hard. That takes time. Guys were learning that all the time. Then you talk about different defensive calls. So those 2 things are being stressed all the time. It makes a giant difference when guys know how we practice or what the expectation is in terms of effort, and then, just more volume of repetition in specific calls. So it's helped a lot. So I've seen that at practice, and, hopefully that'll carry over, and we got a lot of work to do. I mean, you got, spring, couple practices left. We have all the summer and fall camp. There's a lot of work to be done, but I think we're going in the right direction.
Then my last question for you is, there's a different offensive play caller on the other side for you. What are you seeing so far with Coach Anai? You've worked with him before or been familiar with him. Like, how does that look on the other side of the ball that you're focused on?
I mean, it's fun. Like, Robert's a great guy. He's a guy that I really respect, really care about, and I would say that he is the best I've been around at identifying who his talented players are, and then being very creative in getting them the ball. So right now, he's working at it right now. But man, it's just fun to see how sharp and creative, and the mindset of like, all right, this is what our good players can do. This is how we're going to get them the ball. It's always fun to see how that goes. So it's been fun. He has a lot of wisdom too. So it's just fun to be around him. It's fun.
Coach Nick Howell, thank you so much, and best of luck these last couple of weeks for spring practice.
Thank you. Yep. Yeah.
All right, so yeah, that was Nick Howell, Utah State defensive coordinator. Anything that stood out in particular while you were doing that interview, Eric?
Yeah, well, just I think it's a similar theme that I'm hearing in these interviews in the spring is just how much more familiar things are this spring compared to last. There are a much higher volume of players who understand how this system works, how this training system works, what's expected of them. And so this year, they're just much further ahead of schedule because they know what's expected of them. Do they always get it right? No. There was a practice I went to where it ended with a lot of discipline going on. This is a team that's, they have a lot of new faces, but there's not nearly as many as last year. And even that, there's a lot of guys who understand who Nick Howell is. They understand who Bronco Mendenhall is. They understand what's expected of them and how to do it right if they want to have success on the field. So there were a lot of things that were building at the end of last season. It's tough to build that momentum over months of not having the guys with you, and there's some turnover here. But I'm encouraged by a lot of the things that I'm hearing and going to these practices and talking to the coaches about how players are further ahead now of understanding where they need to be to have a successful program in the fall.
Yeah, it's nice to hear the narrative of we're farther ahead and we like having the continuity versus, well, I've got a lot of challenges, but we're overcoming them by, a bunch of new guys because, you're trying to put,
Yeah, those messages last year were, we're trying to teach discipline. We're trying to develop a culture, and
it's like you're trying to put icing on a burnt cinnamon roll.
Yeah, we're starting from scratch, and now they're not. Like the recipe is there, the ingredients are there. You've got grandma's recipe there. You're familiar with it and how it's supposed to taste. So they're much further ahead of where they were a year ago, and that's encouraging. A year ago, though, they also had some key guys who were already back, and they already understood how they could compete and succeed on the field. There are still big questions about key positions for this team. So it's not like, my gosh, this team is going to be in the college football playoff. I'm not there.
Yeah, I'm not.
But this is a team that's further ahead of where they were a year ago, and that was a team that ended up going to a bowl game.
Yeah, I'm still not willing to go like above 7-8 wins. I don't think, just because there are, like, if you're going to believe that this Aggie team is going to win 8, 9, 10 games, there are so many assumptions you have to make about things going right that you're really putting your neck out there. And if you're a fan and you want to be optimistic, that's perfectly fine.
Sure.
And I think that there are, like, when I look at, some of the logical through lines of, like, what's required, like the offensive line making improvements, I'm like, yeah, that can definitely happen. I can see where they've made some changes. There's some improvements that can happen. Like the wide receiver group needs to be as good, maybe even slightly better than it was last year. I can see that. The defense making improvements. I can see that. Like, these are all well within the realm of possibility, but they're all assumptions. They're all unknowns. There's a foundation to build on, and I think that foundation is higher than it was last year. But there's some things we got to work through first. But looking at some of the players, Eric, as we mentioned, you had a chance to talk to Anthony Garcia, and since I got the order right the first time, I'm pretty sure, unless I manage to screw it up even worse this time,
odds are good,
we can hear from Anthony Garcia as Eric talked to him after practice today.
Yep. Utah State wide receiver Anthony Garcia, and we look at about a week left of spring practices. So how would you assess how things have gone so far for you guys in spring?
I think they've gone well. I think we've meshed well as an offense, especially with so many new guys, so many new pieces. And I thought we hit the ground running, and we've gotten better. I've seen progress every practice, I feel like, from each room, especially my wide receiver room and just those guys, and we're building good relationships and meshing very well.
About so much new. There's not as much new this year as there was last year. There were only a few guys who understood what Bronco Mendenhall would ask of them. How different is it this year, walking into this spring practices where what's expected in this staff and the system?
Yeah, it's definitely different. Coming in last year, I was a new guy, didn't really know many people. This year, I'm returning and at a position that I've been at for about half a year now. So I think it's definitely building my confidence, just knowing where I'm at and knowing, like, really the ceiling is all the way up here, and there's a lot I can learn just being at the position I've been at for such a short amount of time. So just trying to pick the brains of the guys who have been playing the position, and Coach Ridley, the new receiver coach. But yeah, I think coming into the spring, just a lot more confident, just knowing where I'm at and being able to build on that.
You're in a unique position where you are relatively new to the position that you're playing, but you are the guy with the most returning experience for Utah State at that position. So how would you assess, like, how things are going with the wide receiver room generally? Because there's a lot of guys that fans just don't really know yet.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've brought a lot of guys in. We have some guys still coming back from injury, but I think we look good. I think we have a bunch of different body types and different threats that we can go deep. We can use our size. We can beat them with quick twitch, and we can beat them in any way possible.
New offensive coordinator as well. It's a lot of change, but Robert and I is very familiar with Coach Mendenhall and a lot of other guys on this staff. But what's it like for you getting to know him and how he's trying to implement the offense here?
It's been really cool, and to be honest, they've actually, when I was moving positions and starting to be more used as an athlete and a receiver, they were showing me film from a player at Virginia who Coach Anai was the offensive coordinator for. So it was crazy. Like, as soon as they told me who they were bringing in, I was like, I mean, I'm the guy that he would love to use, and he used him a lot when he was at Virginia, and yeah, so I was very encouraged by that, and I mean, I trusted him, I trusted Coach Mendenhall, and they have a good relationship. So, I mean, getting to know him has been cool as well. Like, he's a funny guy. He's a little bit older, but very experienced, and I've learned a lot from him for sure.
there are also going to be there's going to be a new quarterback for Utah State. I mean, no matter what. So what are you seeing so far in the guys who are here? I know there's still one more who will get here in the summer, but what have you seen so far to the quarterbacks at Utah State?
Just like a very good natural feel for the game. There's been times where we've seen coverages that we haven't even talked about in meetings, and they're putting the balls in places, and we just have a good chemistry that I feel like you don't really see in the first spring with a bunch of new guys. And I feel like we've meshed very well. We got some guys who have experience, who have been here before, and guys who are coming in who have all stepped up and really shown a very good talent. And we got some young guys who can throw it around and run around as well. So encouraged in that room for sure.
Next Saturday, it's a spring showcase opportunity for the team to show what you guys have been working on. What do you think fans will see? What will they see when they come and watch you guys next Saturday?
They'll see a lot of explosive plays. They'll see some, hopefully, trick plays from me. We haven't ran too many. Hopefully, we're saving them for this spring game for the fans. But, yeah, just a lot of explosive plays, pushing the ball down the field, running the ball as well, intermediate game, trying to be efficient. And, yeah, but it's going to be exciting for sure.
Anthony Garcia, thanks so much, and good luck next Saturday.
Thank you.
So yeah, that's Anthony Garcia, Utah State football wide receiver, gadget guy. Basically everything rolled into one. Wide receiver, running back, quarterback, punter if, Bronco Mendenhall's do believe what he said on signing day.
Yeah.
What they might try and use him as.
He's a really interesting athlete for Utah State and can be used and successful in a lot of different ways for the Aggies. And I really thought it was interesting hearing him talk about Robert and I, watching film on some players that that I used and to try to convince, or not convince, but to show Anthony Garcia what his potential was. And now having him as a play caller, interesting to have that relationship continue. So there are a lot of wide receivers that we just aren't familiar with. There's some that we had hopes to see last year and didn't because of injury. And so getting those guys back, that's kind of exciting if they can be healthy. But he feels confident that there's a lot of versatility in that wide receiver room, and fans should be excited to see what they can do next Saturday in their spring showcase.
Well, just from what I've seen so far, just looking at kind of player archetypes, I don't have any measure of these guys' skill just yet because I haven't really seen them, and I haven't really had as much time as I'd like to go back and watch some film of guys like Javon Robinson, or Eli Wood even. But you've got a bunch of guys of different types of wide receivers, and you like to see that. You like to see a well-balanced wide receiver room, and particularly multiple guys of those archetypes. You got a couple of guys who can be great slot guys: Anthony Garcia, Javon Robinson, Dimmick Starling. With him, he could even be an outside wide receiver. But you got Rex Haynes and Eli Wood, guys that can be outside wide receivers, your possession receivers, or even deep threats. They've got guys that can be a deep threat. So I like the versatility, the potential versatility, and the potential, just like overall potential of the wide receiver group.
Yeah.
Now, again, it's an unknown, and there's a lot of assumptions that you got to make if you're an outside observer about how good they can be. We'll get an idea of that next Saturday when we see them run a public scrimmage. It'll be the first time that we get to see this team kind of up close and personal, at least without having to sneak into any of the bushes. Like, I mean, Eric, he sneaks into practice all the time. Isn't that what you do? Like,
no, I don't. For those at Utah State listening, I don't.
But he did that one time.
I well,
on accident.
On accident.
He accidentally snuck into practice. Nobody told him practice was closed, and he just went.
I've developed an uncanny track record of whomever I request. This is for player interviews, that whomever I request, they are the one of, if not the last players to leave the field and come and do the interview.
Do you think they do that on purpose?
And I always ask for different guys: offense, defense, special teams. Like, I've been talking to the sports information people up there. It's like, it doesn't matter who I ask for. It's just something in the universe has those guys like stick around extra long.
Do the players
before they come off the field?
Do the players know before the practice that they're gonna have to speak with the media?
Generally not.
They just have to run up and say, "Hey, we need you for media."
Yeah. I'm sitting there with the SID, and he tracks him with, "Hey, I gotta need to grab you for an interview." Oh, okay.
So they don't know. This isn't
No,
like
they're like pre-approved from the coach, but they themselves don't always know.
This isn't an elaborate ruse.
They're like, oh, there's that radio guy again. Let's hang out and do some extra routes.
Yeah, just all that stuff. We got to take a break. When we come back.
Meanwhile, I'm fending off the bees.
Yeah. And those of you watching, you got to see Eric and Anthony Garcia.
Yeah, Anthony was waving. He saw a lot of hand movement from Anthony Garcia. Part of it, he's talking with his hands, but most of it, he's trying to wave off the bees.
He's trying not to get stung.
Meanwhile, they're like, congregating all over my hand while I'm holding the microphone and the camera, and I had to just like be as concentrated as possible and not freak out.
Need to get you like a beekeeper suit or something like that.
Show up. Some smoke.
We've got some text coming on the Young Power Sports Logan text line. So when we come back, we will get to those as well, though we will also finally start talking a little bit about pro sports. The Utah Mammoth, they're trying to clinch a playoff spot potentially tonight.
Yeah.
They need some help to do so, but they could clinch a playoff spot tonight if things go right, along with the NFL and NBA having their own respective and somewhat unique problems with TV, which you would have heard a little bit more about the NFL on the top of the hour updates, as they mentioned those explicitly.
Yeah.
So we'll get to all of that coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
Have you heard about Birdie's Golf Lounge? It's new. They're at 650 North, 870 West in Logan. You can get there, have a swing AI coach system. It uses state-of-the-art monitors with cameras for superior analysis. It even uses LiDAR for the most realistic mapping of over 2,000 courses that are available. And top-of-the-line launch monitors with 3 internal cameras providing the most accurate readings for every part of your game. Go check it out through April 30th. Early Birdies pricing of $129 a month with no monthly contract before opening. Usually that's like $259 a month. So great deals available now at Birdie's Golf Lounge, 650 North, 870 West in Logan.
Let's go make sure to check them out. I know I happen to see a little bit more about them as well, and I'm like, dang, just go try it out.
Yeah, it's really cool stuff.
See if they can fix my absolutely broken golf swing. 9-5 with a text saying, we all know that Eric put on his ghillie suit at the way he goes off to practice for what he needs. If they ever catch you at practice, his name is Michael Bolton.
Michael Bolton?
I'm not familiar with. There's a reference. We were talking about, we happened to bring up Abel Porter because we were talking about Davis High alum and whatnot, 8632, noting Abel Porter was the savior of Craig Smith's first year. We were unironically starting Crew Ainge until Abel Porter hit the game-winning buzzer beater against UNM.
That's right. Yeah, there was... Yeah. Crew Ainge was the guy, but there was inconsistency. And even Abel Porter was somewhat inconsistent, but then they made that change and really leaned in more on Abel Porter, and things stabilized dramatically after that.
Like, because they had like Abel Porter, I think, was like their fourth option, like at the start of the year.
Yeah.
Like he was a walk-on, and they had Crew Ainge, like Tarian Prince, I think was his name, and then like, I think kind of like John something the third, like he was a JUCO guy. And all three of them had all three of them had positives. No, not Tarian Prince. That's an
NBA guy.
An NBA guy. It's Tarian something. But he's a freshman. Of course, so was Abel Porter, I think. He was either freshman or redshirt freshman. No, it was Tarian Knight. I think it was Tarian Knight, and then like John Knight. I think they had like the same last name or something like that. I'm trying to remember names, and I've already proven on this show I can't do that. But they like all had their issues, and none of them could be consistent enough. And Abel Porter came in and was consistent. He was solid. He could give you like 6-7 points. He could shoot like 40% from three, and he'd give you like 3 or 4 assists. He was exactly what they needed to pair along with, you had Sam Merrill and Nemish Keta. So it's not like they didn't need somebody to step in and score 15 a game. They just needed someone who could run that point guard position.
Yeah.
And he did it.
Yep.
And it was, he did it very well. 9015, I was texting and saying, that's from when the Jazz player got caught in a bar in Park City and said he was Michael Bolton. Do you remember that?
Okay.
I'm not asking if you doubt. I'm not saying
Thanks,
935 I wondered if you would remember that.
For the random texts today.
Eric, don't be so mean.
They're all over the place with this guy today.
It's fine. I think that was all the texts. I don't think I missed any of them. So let's talk about the Utah Mammoth for a little bit. I don't have the what was it? The Utah Mammoth. They can clinch. They can clinch a playoff spot tonight, I believe. Where I believe so they play tonight. They play the Nashville Predators, another Ice Age game.
Yeah, that's right. And they're right there. They're neck and neck.
Yeah.
And they're really close in the standings. I mean, Utah has the advantage. They have more points than Nashville does, but they're right there with them trying to secure wild card position. So for Nashville, it's a lot more important for them to get this win than Utah because they've got the Kings breathing down their neck for that other wild card spot in the Western Conference.
So here's how the Mammoth can clinch a playoff spot today. It's a relatively specific scenario. They have to defeat the Nashville Predators in regulation. That's important because if they beat them in overtime, Nashville gets a point.
Yep.
And then also the San Jose Sharks, who are also right along that line for the making the wild card, the Sharks have to lose to Anaheim today. So those are the two things, and it doesn't matter if it's regulation or anything.
Anaheim's a better team.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be in regulation, that one, or anything like that. There's nothing like that attached to that. But the Mammoth have to win in regulation and have Anaheim beat San Jose. If those two things happen, the Mammoth will be guaranteed to appear in the playoffs for the first time in franchise history.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Franchise, for the first time for the franchise, yeah, but playoff hockey is so fun.
I will watch every single Stanley Cup playoff game that the Mammoth are in this year.
Yeah, playoff hockey is electric. And have the playoffs happening again in the state of Utah.
Yeah.
Like meaningful sports in April and May.
If they happen during the show, we might cut the show short so I can go watch Utah Mammoth.
Yeah, absolutely.
We might
won't do any carryover.
Yeah. unless something really big happens, and even then, I might like have the Mammoth game on the on the monitor, being like, "Oh, we're talking about the Aggies signing this player. Go!" That'd basically be the one thing that would have us extend the show, is if they signed a bunch of transfers, which 'tis the season for that to happen.
Right.
And I think we're going to be seeing like we've seen the one reported commit with Will Hornseth, but a lot of the commits are going to like take after this first weekend. I imagine, like, basically as long as it takes for players to come in and do visits, which for a lot of these guys who are still in school, you got to kind of do it on the weekend.
Yeah.
So that's where I think the Aggies are going to maybe start getting a few more commits, is basically they have to get these guys to visit. It's how soon can they get a guy on a visit? That's how soon they can start getting commits. So that's basically how it is for, like, if you're kind of on the edge waiting, like, when are all these transfers going to start signing? Got to wait till visits start happening.
Yeah, it's still very early stages. So right now the portal period is like before the portal opened, it was all the players who announcing their intentions, and then the portal opens, and then everybody files, and then you have a few others that within the first few days like enter, and then there's kind of a little bit of a quieter period of players entering the portal, and then you start to see players sign. And then there's another wave.
There's kind of an aftershock of players entering the portal.
Well, I want to go play with that guy, or if they're signing him, that means my roster spot's in jeopardy, so I'm going to go find something else.
Yeah.
So yeah, it tends to kind of undulate through the whole process. So a lot initially, it's kind of tamped down a little bit. Now we're getting to the phase where guys are announcing where they're going to go or who they're showing interest in. So it's going to be open for 2 weeks. We're almost a full week through this. We still got another week of it for players entering the portal, but players can be announced or signed well after that. So
yeah, there's no deadline on
we're
signing.
impatient beings, but we'll have to use a little bit more patience.
Come on, Eric. We want to see Utah State signings in the transfer portal now.
I know, a lot of positions to fill. So there's you don't want to miss out on a guy, but it's also sometimes it's good to wait to see how things pan out with availability and guys searching for different opportunities.
All right, we got to take another break. When we come back, we've got Pick 6, the return of Pick 6. We didn't announce the results from last week, but
everybody's been waiting.
We'll announce those really quickly, and then we'll get to this week's Pick 6 here on the Full Court Press on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan. Welcome on back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen as getting ready to do pick 6 here. I got to find the fancy little play button that I got to do. So, because we didn't announce the pick 6 results here. Let me quickly announce them before we get to the big one.
All right.
Drum roll, please.
I got to see if I'm coming up the tiebreaker or you are.
So give me a drum roll, Eric. And it was me.
Oh.
I won.
What?
3-2. Eric can check my work
it
if he
was
doesn't
close.
believe me. It was close. Yeah, it was 3-2, and it came down to that last line. Neither of us were doing particularly well when it was only 3-2. But let's get to pick 6 for this week.
Press Pick 6.
Ever since March Madness ended, I am so bored.
6 things we think will happen this weekend.
I don't know how the whole betting thing started, but it's fun.
All right, so Erica, since I screwed up again and I didn't reveal pick 6 until it was late again, I'll let you go first since it's my mistake.
Okay. Masters is going on right now.
All right.
The winner of the Masters, will it be a new person or will it be a repeat winner? New or repeat?
I'll say new.
I'm going to go with repeat.
All right.
Field goal attempts by the Memphis Grizzlies when they play the Jazz. 93.5.
I'm going to say over.
I'll take the under. And then combined RBI on Sunday between Chase DeLauter and Drake Baldwin. Now, Chase
no clue
DeLauter
who
plays
those
for
people are.
Cleveland. Drake Baldwin plays for Atlanta. This
All
is
right.
the game that's going to be featured Sunday on NBC between the Braves and the Guardians. So those two players specifically, combined RBI, 2.5.
I'll take the over.
I'll take the under.
That was your 3 lines?
Those are my 3 lines.
I can't count, so. All right, so Utah Mammoth goals against Nashville tonight. The Mammoth have scored at least 6 goals in 4 straight games.
Ooh.
So goals against Nashville over under 4.5.
I will take the. Where's it being played?
I think it's at home.
Is it in Utah?
I think I don't have it pulled up. I did have it pulled up earlier.
I think you're right. I think it is in Utah.
Yeah.
I will take the. I'll take the over.
All right. I'll take the under. And then combined points allowed by Utah in games against Memphis and LA as they finish out the season. Over under 283.5.
Oh. I'm going to take the under.
I think I'm going to take the under as well. That's a bit high. They've given up like 140 points in like 4 or 5
very
straight
well
games.
could happen. It very well could happen.
I've also got a Masters related line. This one's about Scotty Scheffler. His finish in the Masters, well, he basically over under 5.5. Under being he finishes 1st through 5th, and over being worse than 5th, including ties. So like if he ties for 5th, he gets the under.
Yeah. Ooh. I don't even know how he's playing this year.
I think I'll tell you where he's at right. Well, last I checked, he was like tied for 6th or something like that. He wasn't in the top 5 as of
Scotty
like.
Scheffler.
I think they're pretty much all done for the day. So
Yeah. I'll take the under.
all right, I'll take the over. That's
Okay.
probably bad, but I'm gonna take the over. And then
Masters, you never know. It changes from day to
and
day.
for the tiebreaker, I somewhat randomly, or I should say, Eric randomly picked a game in baseball. He didn't know that's what he was doing.
Okay.
But I told him to pick number 1 through 5, and I picked one of the games happening tomorrow, I think. Marlins against the Tigers. So tomorrow, just Marlins by 1.5 over the Tigers. Let me make sure it is. Yeah, tomorrow. Oh, no, tonight. This says, today's Thursday.
Yeah.
Friday, April 10th, Marlins against the Tigers, that specific day, because I know they're probably going to play multiple times as they do in baseball.
Yeah.
So Marlins by 1.5 runs over the Tigers. Marlins 8-5 on the year. Tigers 4-9.
Yeah. Marlins kind of surprisingly playing good.
Yeah, Tigers are at home.
I'm going to go with the Tigers.
All right, and that gives me the Marlins.
I think I'm going to regret that.
Yeah, I always regret all the picks. I think this is a home run pick, and then I end up being wrong. Like that's how it always ends up going.
Yes.
So can never ever get things right. Well, that's gonna pretty much do it for us. Got this last minute of the show to. Are there any other bits of news? I know there was the whole thing about the NFL, or the DOJ going after the NFL.
Yeah, the FCC kind of threw this out earlier, and the Department of Justice now getting in on the act. Just anti-competitive practices, which I don't know how bidding on multiple channels makes it anti-competitive.
It's anti-consumer. That's what it is.
That I can agree with.
Anti-competitive, I'm not sure it fits the definition, but it's not good. It's not good. Like, it's good for the bottom line of the NFL, but it's not good for consumer. But
yeah,
that's going to do it for us today. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for more of the Full Court Press here on The Fan.